It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, October 11th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's getting things going on the season, Russ.
Yeah, hockey's in full swing now.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at @RMiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter at Locked On Flyers as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit fanduel.com to get started. You can find us over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Russ, before we dive into the Flyers opening night of it all, just a quick bit of NHL news we got that Los Angeles will be hosting the draft next year, and it's going to be at LA Live in the theater, not at the whatever the Staples Center is called now that I
Right.
refuse to learn.
Yeah, I was there for the last draft, and that LA Live was fairly new then, and it's grown a lot. So, yeah, that's a good spot.
Yeah, I've been in that area as well, and it's a really cool entertainment district. So, should be a fun event. All right. Flyers season starts tonight in an edition of Flyers After Dark. Got to get that going sooner rather than later with a 10 p.m. start here on the East Coast. But obviously, it's really interesting because we have this back to back against the Canucks and the Flames who played each other on Wednesday night. So we got some real good evidence for both of these games to start out. I think, for the Flyers, we pretty much know what the lineup is going to be based on what we've talked about this week. Sam Ersson is going to get the start in net against Vancouver and Fedotov against Calgary, most likely, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
So, looking at the matchup against the Canucks, I think, man, after that game Wednesday night, Tocchet went off on them, was not happy. They lost that game 6-5 in overtime. So, this is going to be a very motivated Canucks team, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be looking for the first win of the season, and if the coach ripped them, then yeah, it's going to be one that at this point they know that they don't have their stopper goalie, and I think that's why Tocchet's trying to sort of make up the difference there.
Yeah, so, they did have some significant changes this offseason. They lost Zadorov and Elias Lindholm and picked up Jake DeBrusk, Danton Heinen, Vincent Desharnais, and Daniel Sprong, amongst many. Former Flyer Mark Friedman was waived, so he's back in the AHL. But I think there's been some mixed feelings about these moves, and did they really improve here or not?
Well, their top four is really good now for defense, and they have goaltending depth now, which they didn't have. So I think those things are good. I know Sprong already scored.
Yep.
If Atu Ratu actually is as good as we all thought he was, a few years back, that's going to be really good for them on the third line. So yeah, I think they still have enough. It's just, yeah, I mean, Demko's a big piece, but Seelov's played really well in the playoffs. So if he gets it together, we just don't know. That was a small window.
Yeah, Sheila did not have a good game against
Right.
Calgary. That is for sure. You mentioned Ratu playing. Suter was recovering from an injury. That's why he got into the lineup. Thought he did okay. I watched the game.
Okay.
Just I thought he had a okay game. I wouldn't say a great game. I think 20 saves on 26 shots for Shilov's not a good way to start the season.
No, no. I mean, I watched, a little bit of another game. I think the Canucks, the way you look at it is they're a tough team. They are very good at zone entry. So that's something where if the Flyers want to sort of like get at it early, you got to stop them from getting into your zone. You've got to
Yeah.
either stand them up at the blue line, have everybody up there, because once someone like Hughes goes deep with the puck, bad things start to happen. And you got to watch guys like Miller and other guys around the net. Like those are two areas where they really could hurt you. Where I feel like the Flyers at times are apathetic about clearing the crease.
Yeah, I think so to some degree. I think that, that's something that with the Canucks, they're going to absolutely have to
Yeah,
focus
they don't do it
on.
all the time. Let's put it that way. They don't.
Yeah. So I think the way the Canucks looked in this first game is that they came out like guns ablazing in the first period. They looked unstoppable in that first period with tremendous puck movement. Their power play was just dialed. And then Calgary wore them down. And at the same time, Vancouver got complacent. Right? And they
That
just
happens. Yeah.
weren't playing as hard as they were early because they got up to a 4-1 lead and kinda coasted for a significant amount of time, and Calgary was able to inch their way back into this game with a slightly more grindy style, and, we'll talk about Calgary, in the next segment, but I think that um, this team is beatable, but the individual pieces they have are so good that it's like when you look at kind of one-on-one matchups here, it's going to be difficult for the Flyers.
Yeah, if I remember, the Flyers opened up early against them too, like they were in there.
Mhm.
And I remember Quinn Hughes was a new captain for them, and they didn't play a good game. Like the Flyers really took it to them.
No. Now
And
the Flyers were
so
at home last year for that one.
yes, yes. But still, it's the same Canucks team, few other changes, right? So that's probably why Taka went off, because he's probably like, look, I've seen this before on and off from you
Mhm.
guys, and I don't want to see it again. So, yeah, it's unfortunate the Flyers don't get in there when they're doing that, because now they're probably going to play with their hair on fire.
They are, and, obviously, JT Miller just was everywhere and anywhere on the ice, in that game. There was, like, an injury situation where he accidentally hit somebody on the Flames who left the game. We'll get into that, but, JT Miller did score the game-tying goal. They were 6 on 5 with an empty net at the end, in order to tie things up and force overtime, which then they lost, but the fact that despite kind of trailing off over the course of the latter half of the game and letting Calgary back in it, they still managed to tie it up and force the overtime. Like this Canucks team is just not going to give up.
No, they're a really good team. So this is a tough game. For your first game, it's a tough game. For Luchenko and Michkov, it's a very tough game.
Yeah, and I think that, to your point, this early season discombobulation that happens with everybody, I think
Yeah.
the Flyers are gonna have to not be that in order to
Yeah.
really, match up against this team just again because they're so motivated after the loss, and also especially with the goaltending situation they have with Thatcher Demko being injured, and that's why Shelovs was in the game. Now, will we see Lankinen instead, given how Shelovs play? I don't know
I don't
yet.
think so. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. It's a day off in between, so he should be good to go. But to
Yeah.
me, giving Shelovs a chance to kind of get back on the horse is the better move over putting
Yeah, I think
Lankinen
so.
in.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I'm at. Again, not
I don't think
sure
Lankinen's
as
gonna
of
play
recording.
much. I just don't feel like he's gonna play much.
Well, I think they're hoping that Demko comes back
Well,
sooner
that's what I
rather
mean.
than
So if
later.
Demko comes back in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, they may not even use Lankinen, depending on their schedule. That's my point.
Yeah. Now, I'm also, I really focused on these matchups because of the Canucks having last change. I
Yep.
really think, they're gonna put that second line with Pedersen, DeBrusk, and Sprong
Oh, yeah.
is so strong, and I can see them going up against the Couturier line with Mitchkov in there just to try and slow them down.
Sure. And then if that's the case, then if they match up JT Miller against Luchenko, that's a
Mhm.
tough one, man. That's tough for anybody.
Mhm.
It's really tough for him. So
I
that's
know. So JT Miller, of course, has Besser on his wing too, which is not great for Luchenko,
no.
I think, in the grand scheme of things. But so these matchups are going to be very, very difficult on the front end, which is why the back end is going to have to really perform well. The top four defensemen for the Flyers are going to have to shoulder a huge burden here.
Yeah, they will. I mean, the fourth line's going to play a lot. I just
Mhm.
I feel against the team like, I mean, because we don't really know uh if the Flyers have a true shutdown line. So the fourth is resembles one. So I think that's, they're going to be out there late in periods, especially if the top two lines are out there. One of them for the Canucks. That's just the way I feel like the matchups are going to go.
Yep. Not worried about Samerson though. So I think
No,
that's
no, I think he'll be fine.
yep. I think so too. So I think, as we said, Ivan Fedotov is going to play against the Calgary Flames, who we are going to talk about coming up next. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. One of the things I love about Indeed is it makes hiring all in one place so easy because you can avoid all the busy work. You can use it for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And it doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use it, the better it gets. Listeners of Locked On Flyers will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at indeed.com/locked on. Just go to indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Flyers. That's indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. On the Monday show, we'll be back to recap this weekend of action for the Flyers to open the season. Plus, of course, we will have our nemesis of the week. Turning our attention to opponent number 2 on this road trip is the Calgary Flames. And I mentioned JT Miller's hit in that game. It was against Kevin Rooney. He was doing okay, but they kept him out of the rest of the game. As of now, I wasn't sure what his status is heading into that game. That Calgary game for the Flyers is the next game for the Flames, so he has like an extra day to recover. And we'll see what happens with that. But it was a very scary, kind of quasi accidental hit that happened.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's okay. I think the biggest standout for me in that game on the Flame side was Connor Zary.
Mhm.
What an incredible talent. He got the OT winner in the game, and it was just like the release on his shot
Yeah.
was absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, he had to get stronger and get faster, but the offense is there. It's always been there, and that's why they wanted him. So, he's been a pick that, has taken just a little bit, and that's normal. Having him on the top line is good. He's a guy that you definitely have to watch. Huberto always causes the Flyers problems, but offensively they're missing a lot.
Yeah.
Mantha, sure, but offensively they could be handled. Defensively, I think they have like a decent top four. It's not great. I mean, this is a beatable team for sure. They're a team that's going to tank. They're going to trade everybody at the deadline. They're going to be in the top 5 or 6. But it's the start of the season, and you always got to worry about, I don't see Nazem Kadri there. Is he not playing yet?
He's on the top line. Yeah.
My bad. So they have a little bit more. I'm surprised they put Hanzik on the top line. He's 6'4". He's got a lot of talent in his hands and everything, but I don't know if he's quite there yet. Yeah, Kadri will give the Flyers problems too.
Yeah, he got 2 assists in that game against the Canucks, and they got goals from 6 different guys. So, I think that you can argue, did the Flames step it up or did the Canucks back off a little bit in this game? Or is it first game of the season
I think it's first
wackiness?
game of the season, and it just didn't work for one, and it worked for the other.
Yeah, so the Flames got goals from Anthony Mantha, Jonathan Huberdeau in this game, who, oh, he must be feeling all kinds of weird after the Panthers last season.
Oh, I'm
But
sure. Yeah.
um, I think that you're right. This team is a team that's in a little bit of disarray, and they absolutely are and should be beatable. They have some individual really strong players.
Yes.
Um, I do think that obviously they're suffering at goaltender quite a
Yeah.
bit since they lost Markstrom to New Jersey,
I mean,
right?
Wolf's the future guy. He's not quite ready just yet. So that's why, Vladar has been the backup for a while. He's pretty good. They got him from Boston originally. But, in the end, I like Wolf, and I do think he could be a one in the league, but it's going to still take a little while longer. So, yeah, I'm not sure who they're going to get.
Well, I think they might get Wolf only because the Flyers game is the first half of a back-to-back for the
Okay.
Flames, and the second half is the Oilers. So if I'm the Flames, I put Vladar in against the Oilers and Wolf in against the Flyers.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, Wolf could be really good. I mean, he's not the biggest goalie, but he's very athletic, has a good glove. So he could be a battle. He could be a hard to break sometimes.
Yeah, and I think, for the Flyers, with this being the second half of the back-to-back for the Flyers and the first half of the back-to-back for the Flames, the Flyers are gonna be playing a little tired, especially after playing the Canucks team, and they're gonna have to figure out a way to grind this out because that is what the Flames are gonna do, and they're
Right.
gonna get physical and just try and wear the Flyers down even more to give them those chances. And so I think that's something that the Flyers are going to have to watch out for and really like look at the minutes in this game very carefully and make sure
Yeah, I think
guys
you
are
got to
coming
watch
off.
Couturier. You don't want to. I mean,
Hmm.
early in the season he was fine last year, but still, you don't want to zap him early, even on a back to back. Like I said, Mitchkov, he plays so hard, he almost exhausts himself on shifts. So I think you do have to watch that a little bit. And Luchenko, who knows? I mean, as far as the pros go, playing back to back, I mean, that's a whole different ball game for him.
Yeah, although he seems to be in like better shape than most people on the team. Like Torts has talked
Physically,
about him.
but
Right.
mentally is the part
Well,
that
that's fair.
wears on young players. That's really what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair, but it's really going to depend on how this game against the Canucks goes.
Hmm.
Is how this is going to really affect how the game against Calgary winds up as well. And I think that, that the third line of Calgary, which Huberdeau and Mantha are on, I think that is going to be a really key matchup. Whoever they get, that they send those guys out there against is going to be they're going to be really difficult to play against.
They will, but I'm not sure that stays their third line. Like I think in game they'll mix and match a little bit. I don't think you're going to keep Huberto on the third line the whole game. I don't think you're going to. I think in tough defensive situations, Blake Coleman's going to be out there, whether it's his line or not, because that's his game. So I
Yeah.
think they're going to mix and match a little bit as the game goes on.
What's your take on the Calgary blue line here? Because it does not seem like pretty strong at all.
No, they're splitting it up. Like Uyghur and Anderson are fine. Like Uyghur's really good.
Yeah.
Anderson's fine. Ball's still a little green, big, big guy, but he could be like, Tyler Myers in the early days when he wasn't quite there, had some turnovers, but he is physical. There's no question they're going to be physical. I always love Jake Bean. I don't know if he's ever going to be a true offensive threat now, but he's figured out his game, how to stay in the NHL. So he's a good skater and he's good. So it's like, I think that they have three really good ones. And then the rest are kind of like, all right, they're like NHL average. So this is probably a below
Hmm.
average defense as a team.
Right. So I think that's where the Flyers are going to have to take advantage
Yes.
is, and this is where I think more garbage goals or net front action is going to be where they might have some success, get some redirects going, I think, and find some success on the power play. Because if there's any team that you can start to get that going against, it's this Calgary team, right?
Yeah, I mean, they do have some strong penalty killers there. Coleman definitely comes to mind. Kadri can play the penalty kill. So they do have some strong ones, but I agree with you that the power play could be a thing. Now, for a guy like Michkov or Luchenko, they got to watch out for Ball because, he hits like a ton of bricks. And so you got to be careful, especially Michkov when he's going to be around the net and, you know, make plays on the side and he's going to wait till the last second to pass that puck. He's got to really watch out for him.
Yeah, I think so. So it should be a really interesting back to back for the Flyers to start the season. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but a lot of challenge in these two games to start off the road trip. We're going to talk more about the road trip as a whole and kind of our closing thoughts for the preseason leading into the regular season. We'll do that coming up next.
Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, forget having to have dozens of tabs open. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Again, go with the Eagles over the Browns. That seems solid. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com.
All right, so wrapping up this week in Flyers land, we talked about the challenges and what's going on with those first two games. Like, do you have any predictions or how do you think they'll do against these two teams?
I mean, I think that if they got a split, that would be good. Uh,
Yeah.
I think the Vancouver game is the tougher game, but if for some reason they really rise to the occasion on Vancouver, the back-to-back early in the season's going to be rough. I just feel like, with the young guys in there, it's going to be rough. Again, if it's Fedotov and you got a team playing on the back-to-back and that's in front of him, he's probably not going to have the best defense in front of him that game, or at least the one that was better maybe the night before. So I think those are the two challenges. So I think that the Vancouver one will be a little more high scoring. Now, I don't mean 6-5. I don't think it'll be like that, but I think it'll be higher scoring than we think. And then the Calgary one, that one I think is one that I think maybe one goal separates the winner on that one. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's fair. 2-1 sounds like the right score for the Calgary game.
Yeah, yeah,
When all is said and done, just given that I feel like they will have to kind of exhaust themselves to some degree
yeah,
against Vancouver. And I think like before watching the Vancouver Calgary game, I might have said the Flyers had a really good chance to win that game. Again, just based on past history with early
right.
season games against Vancouver and the way this team is set up to come out of the gate. And by that, I mean the Flyers. I think
Yeah,
they have a lot of energy, they have a lot of excitement, and they're really raring to go because this is their first game. Whereas, for these other teams, it'll be their second game. I think that there's an advantage to that early in the season inherently, but after that game, and like I said, after Tocchet like ripped them, I think it's gonna be a lot more difficult. So
yeah, I
I'm
think so
I'm kind of
too.
with you on the split now. But I do think there's some gonna be some really good things to come out of the game, regardless of the outcome
Yeah,
of it.
I think Delorier is going to play the second game because I think you have to worry about Kadri taking cheap shots at the young guys. So I think if he's going
Yeah.
to play, he's going to play the second game.
Yep, I think so too. Now, in terms of the road trip in general, so after that, next week, we're looking at the Oilers and the Kraken. And so this makes for a very tough road trip overall to start the season for the Flyers. Like, what do the Flyers have to do to get through this road trip? And, what do we need out of it to get the season going?
I mean, it doesn't have to be a winning record. It doesn't. What it has to be is just everybody showing that they belong, meaning Michkov and Luchenko. I'm not worried about Michkov. Luchenko, there's a worry there. They got to show what they can do. The goaltending has to stand up. They have to stand up to this Western trip. All those things, and so that's they they didn't light it on fire in preseason. They didn't. And so now this is the regular season. If it's going to be like that preseason play, this could be a long road trip.
Yeah, I think they'd really just have to bring a lot of energy to these games and show like improved skill over the course of the road trip because again, first game, like things are always a little messed up. Passes aren't always as crisp and all that. I
Right.
just want to see a steady progression over the road trip of getting things dialed, getting clean passes together, really managing gap control a lot. I think sometimes the Flyers suffer from that. Um, and figuring out how to play against these individual teams in terms of what kind of stretch passes they can risk and,
Yeah.
and what they can't. I think that's something that sometimes they struggle with a little bit. But I just kind of want to see them get better and better. And I think like the Oilers game is going to be a huge test. The Oilers, of course, got completely demolished by the Winnipeg Jets, which
Yeah, they're going to be
I
mad.
think is my fault because I picked the Oilers to go to the
It probably is
Stanley
your
Cup
fault.
and the Jets to be like the team that um, kind of gets the most decline this
Yeah,
season.
and I did the
So
opposite, and I said
yeah,
Hellebuck would win a back-to-back Vezina. So there you
sure,
go.
sure. So I feel like the game one was all my fault for both teams. But that being said, I think the Oilers, aren't going to want to start off the way they have in the
No.
past with like having to climb their way back. And I think that that is going to be, I think, the first real test for this Flyers team because they should have kind of gotten things going by then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Flyers have an answer for McDavid and Draisaitl. I mean, yes, they'll play him tough. I think McDavid, even when they shut him down, had a point in his game against them. He's going to get a point no matter what. Draisaitl, I think, is even more of a worry because of his physical nature. So, yeah, that's a that's a tough one. And look, I mean, playing Seattle, speed. They've got a lot of speed. So this is a tough trip. Like this is not an easy trip. And even if they were to start out 2-0, you're still facing really good teams after that. So, I think they have to just survive the trip. That's the main thing. Don't get too down and see how that part's going to go.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm excited to see Jessica Campbell behind the bench in Seattle.
I did
I think
see the
that's
beginning of that
really cool.
game with
Yeah.
that because I wanted to see that, and that was cool. She already got a card deal because she's probably never signed cards for Tops before, even though she probably should have, right? But now that
Yeah.
she's doing this, she is because it's not like assistant coaches in the league have signed card deals. They generally don't. But this is a special situation, and I think it's good. So I think it's cool, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, and it's well deserved for her. She absolutely has the credentials to be there, and
Oh yeah.
I think it's been really fun, and I certainly hope there are more women in those positions
And
and
they don't
higher.
all have to be former players like that, and that's what I was
Yep.
getting at with the card deal. Like a lot of those women haven't signed enough cards yet, same as the men, right? But yeah, they don't all have to be former players. I mean, I think that's when you'll see like, hey, maybe somebody played for a little bit, they tried out for college, they didn't do it, they went right into coaching. You know, that's okay. I hope to see more of that in the future.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of women coaches that are experienced and qualified to start moving up the ladder like she did. So, looking forward to more of that in the future. I think the good thing for the Flyers about the Oilers and Kraken games is that they're spread apart.
Hmm.
So, they'll be able to recover a little bit better, and so they should have a better opportunity against those 2 teams, especially Seattle, which are kind of a mixed bag right
Yeah, and did I see Stuart Skinner got hurt?
now. That I don't
Y
know off the
yeah,
top
he
of my
did.
head.
Oh, no, he just didn't have a good game. Sorry, he got chased. So, they'll probably end up facing him. I wasn't sure why he left the game early, but because I didn't watch it, he got chased. So, we'll see. I mean, they could be mad
Yeah.
too. You don't want a
I
mad
mean,
Oilers team, man. You don't.
honestly, I would much rather have a mad Oilers team than a mad Canucks team, really, just based on who they are. I think that the Oilers don't play mad in a weird way that,
Yeah, I
like, I think
guess.
the
I
Canucks
guess
do.
they're more by the book, but
Yeah,
I just
they
mean
are.
mad, like, if they haven't scored much or they feel like it's their fault, you don't want to give them a reason to score 7 goals.
Well, that is absolutely true. All right. Well, we've got a Flyers After Dark road trip ahead of us. So keep brewing the coffee and getting your naps in so we can all stay up and watch. I am very much looking forward to the season opener tonight. And like I said, we'll be back Monday to recap both of those games. We'll have our nemesis of the week, which may or may not be related to the games we will see or the games ahead. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got questions, let us know on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey, become a fantasy hockey expert, and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Have a great weekend, everyone, and let's go Flyers.